So, you've never been in a class, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So the class is GEULAH, redemption. And here we are coming to the Chag HaGeulah, the Chag HaPesach, which is the holiday of redemption. We've gone through 2/3 of a year speaking about different aspects of the GEULAH. So it's an amazing idea that history moves towards a rendezvous with Hashem at the end of history. And that if we have eyes, then we can start seeing through through all of the filters and see how that process is unfolding in our individual lives and also in the world. And we don't have to do it on our own. We have the help of very great sages. First of all, we have the prophets. We have a lot in the Tanakh. We have in the Chumash itself. We have whether it's the story of Ava or the story of Sarah and Avraham and Sarah, or the story of Avraham giving birth to Ishmael, and then to Yitzhak, and then all very prophetic. That's how history is going to unfold. You have the East, you have the West, and you have the Middle East, and you have the North. You have Russia and Europe up north. You have the Middle East here and the Far East. You have the Americas. You have the main protagonists to this day are Esav and Yishmael. And you have us in the middle. Yaakov, Yisrael in the middle. So, but after that, then you have Yeshaya, and Yirmiyahu, and Yecheskel, and you have Daniel. You have things about how, because a lot of what the prophets are saying is a meta-historical view of our life, and how all of history moves towards this rendezvous, this endpoint. And how that there are important steps along the way where major shifts can happen depending on the consciousness of mankind. And so what the prophets were trying to do is to shift our consciousness and to align it with Hashem so that bigger things could happen in more positive ways. And when we didn't get it, we didn't understand when Eliyahu Navi told us, hey, it's not right what you're doing. And then he eventually said, I'm going to the mountain and I can't stand these people. He said to Hashem, I can't stand these people. And Yirmiyahu said, away from these people, I can't stand them anymore. It's such a shame that they expected so much of us because they knew that the moment was right. And when we lost the moment, things got worse. In other words, if the moment was right and something was done, then we could have flown. But when we didn't fly, then the opposite happened. Nothing continued to be just normal. We fell. And there were moments of drops where we dropped down and we lost everything. Total tremendous tragedy. On the other hand, the prophets all were told that they have to, what's called L'man achai v'ra'aya d'barana shalom ba'abak L'man achai v'ra'aya, when you speak to Hashem, if you're a prophet, you all have to be. If you're a prophet and you're speaking to Hashem on behalf of Am Yisrael, L'man achai v'ra'aya, for the sake of my brothers and friends, Abakshat, shalom. L'man achai v'ra'aya, Abakshat, what is it? L'man achai v'ra'aya? No, that's Abakshat. Anyway, when you're speaking on behalf of your friends and your brothers and friends, you speak of shalom. You've made it very hard for them. It's like not easy down here. You yourself know that you've set up situations that are almost impossible. So have mercy. And you speak to the people, you guys are the worst I've ever seen. I've never seen anything so lousy. Like you could have done much better. Will you please have mercy on them? It's called standing in the breach. When you turn one, speak one way, and you speak another, you turn another way speaking. But Eliyahu and Yeshayahu both got mixed up and said, will you please tell them that they're lousy? And Hashem said, that's not your job.
It's burnout.
Burnout.
He didn't do that.
Okay, I'm dramatizing him. I hope I'm not ruining it. I'm not speaking bad about Eliyahu or Yeshayahu or Am Yisrael, because on the contrary, it's part of a larger plan. And the GEULAH concept allows us to go up to a higher, that history does have a higher meaning. And even all the suffering we've endured has a higher meaning, individually and collectively. But it's not easy to get up there. And so we tried to do to the Gaon of Ramchal. I saw that it wasn't possible to share that type of wisdom that the Gaon of Vilna brings to the table about the GEULAH. He was a visionary. And that the Ramchal, I didn't even get the chance to speak hardly about the Ramchal. So I said, okay, we'll go down into the characters themselves. The three main characters of the Jewish people, besides Eliyahu Navi, he's the fourth, which constitute the Messianic trio are Yosef, David, and Moshe. And through them, I thought we'd talk about how each one of us can become GEULAH in our own personal lives by internalizing a higher level of awareness that Yosef gives us, that David gives us, and that Moshe, and that they fought it, they struggled for awareness in their lives. And they're teaching us to do the same. So we're in the middle of Moshe, actually towards the end, because we're going to move after Passover to David. And we went slightly into how Moshe is an inner point of consciousness within the human being. The Hashem lifts out of Mitzrayim, where he's born. He brings him out of Egypt to Mount Sinai. And there he has the most amazing experience of God. He's lifted up out of himself into a higher level of who Moshe, beyond Moshe. He experiences something so amazing that no prophet has ever had that much, and that was only the big career. So the whole rest of the Torah, from Shemot on, 4th chapter of Shemot onwards, is like the incredible career of Moshe as a prophet, and to use that as a for how we develop ourselves. That was the attempt here. And there was a piece that we never got to finish, which was here. This piece, Moshe's development as a Navi, as a prophet, where Moshe himself stands at one point in front of Paro and enters into a state of prophecy. So I have a few of those left. He into a state of prophecy right in Paro. And before that, he'd never do that. He always had to leave the palace to pray, let alone to have a perfect encounter.
So what made that possible?
What made that possible?
Was it just a divine gift?
The encounter is very dramatic. I guess everybody share, because there's not enough for everybody here. One for all of you, one for me, and maybe there's four more left for everybody else. It's 2 weeks ago. It's class number 15. This is 17. So it's on page 6 in Paro's palace. So the question that Avraham asked is, what changed? And perhaps the best answer is a one-line answer, which is Hashem decided. Hashem decided that this is what needed to be done. And the point that I'm bringing here, after we learn this for a few moments, is that this was a preparation for what happened at midnight on Leil Pesach, which is what we're going to learn about tonight. So that's the necessary segue that I needed. So on page 6 in Paro's palace, the context of Moshe confronting Paro to free the Bnei Israel, I would like to point out here the 3 times in Parashat Ve'era where Paro begs Moshe to pray to annul one of the Makot. Paro begs Moshe, just pray and stop this. In each instance, in order to pray, Moshe has to leave the palace city. So I bring those. And at the very bottom of the page, after the 3 instances of leaving, so I say, why? Why leave the city? Rashi has waited this entire time to explain to us why in heaven's name Moshe has to leave the city each time to pray to Hashem. Based on the Midrash, Rashi explains Moshe was saying that it's absolutely forbidden, impossible to pray in the city due to the fact that the entire palace is filled with idols. So Rashi says, Kitseti ita'ir, when I leave the city, in ha'ir, from the city, aval betoch ha'ir, but in the city, lo itpalel, he would never pray, lefi shaitam mile'ah gelulim, because it was filled with idols. Okay, it's a short Rashi, and it's like you can't. But he finally waited until he could tell us at the right moment why. So that gives us the framework now to ask what happened different when Moshe got prophecy. So obviously can prophecy when Moshe and Hashem spoke to him. There was we don't know what that was like. I mean, we only describe things in human terms. How exactly is a very interesting process. What when you go into that state? You can only just use your imagination. That you go into some kind of state, and you realize that Hashem is communicating to you in your brain, and you hear it very clearly. Rabbi Hirsch, just for parentheses, says prophecy is not just an inner intuition speaking. It's an actual voice, and he has a lot about what he does, especially at the beginning of Sefer Leviticus, chapter 1, verse 1. Okay, the top of page 7, all of a sudden in Parashat Bo, something amazing. Paro calls Moshe in to stop the 9th plague, the plague of darkness. Paro says, go and serve Hashem, just keep the sheep here, take only your children with you. Sheep here, take your children with you. And there's a whole thing that why Paro's dualistic view of the world, or dualistic view of the dualism between the good and bad God, and why you don't take your children when you're going to appease the bad God, and you don't take your sheep when you're going to for sacrifices, for complete burnt sacrifices, not to eat. You don't take your sheep for burnt sacrifices when you're going to the good God. You take your wives and your families, and you have fun with the good God, and you repent the bad God. So the dualistic thing that Malbim explains about this particular statement of Paro is brilliant. Now Moshe says, no, we will take all the animals plus the kids and everybody else. Paro hardens his heart. He refuses to send the children of Israel away. He says, get out of here. Beware that you die. And Moshe replies, you're right. I'll never see your face again. And all of a sudden, immediately right there on the spot, Hashem speaks to Moshe. And Rashi brings it out that that's exactly what's happening. Rashi says, from the moment Moshe left the palace that time, he never saw Paro's face again. So this had to have happened when he was standing there. So it's just that I'm on this type of putting things together, and it really only takes on its full meaning today when we learn about what's going on about Pesach, so to get so excited about the answer to the question of what happened that made this different, it's just before the 10th plague.
Mm-hmm.
It's the end of this entire process, you could say, and culminating, because right now we're going to see the end of Egypt. So, what all that stuff, right? The movies could never do justice to the nuances, but that's what we're trying.
So it could be that this is like a prelude or something to the actual disappearance of all the Avodah. That's what's going to happen. The Avodah is going to disappear.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is like a hint of what's going to
disappear happen. In the sense of, and also figuratively or spiritually on Leil Pesach at 12 o'clock at night, and literally because Egypt is going to, the old kingdom is going to be destroyed. It's already been partially destroyed. It's the end of the old kingdom according to the chronology that I go by, with which is a huge complexity of chronology in the world. There's secular ideas, and they've changed over the last 100 years, constantly changing. It's called the evolution of Egyptology. But the chronologist that I go by, and I happen to know him, is in French, who's dedicated to teaching chronology, because so he dates the end of the at the Exodus, and it fits completely. Whatever. So those are things that I can talk about or give you information about another time. So food for thought. Moshe Rabbeinu has now just been able to prophesy within the palace, and he's received a prophecy that something big is going to happen now. And he has to tell the children of Israel, the content of the prophecy is very interesting, is that he has to tell the children of Israel to borrow silver and gold from the Egyptians. It's interesting, the Yishal, ask, which is sometimes understood as borrow. So there's a lot going on here.
Can I just?
Yes, yeah.
I was just thinking that maybe Hashem wanted Paro to witness Moshe Rabbeinu in a prophetic state. It was almost one last chance. If I show you what it's really like to be holy and to encounter the Creator, maybe he'll start to do
Amazing, yeah.
one last chance.
Yeah, because it's putting his heart in his heart 2 or 3 times. Hashem wanted him to do true, but he's not going to harden his heart.
At least 5 times.
What kind of heart? What kind of Hashem is that?
It's like, yeah, my wife is saying that maybe if Paro could only see, Paro is in a sense is the opposite of Moshe. Moshe's job was to transform Paro, whatever.
I don't think hardening the heart was an absolute, I'm not positive, but I don't think it was an absolute thing where he had absolutely no free will. I think it means that it was tremendously reduced. Somebody said that.
Can you just expand on that? I think what it means, tell me if you think this holds water or not, is that because Paro had continuously made himself harder and harder, that Hashem had to make him harder even still.
So that he
So from
wouldn't
that point,
collapse.
if he could do teshuva from that hardened place, then that's the teshuva was necessary to undo all the evil that he'd done before that.
Right.
So Hashem was actually doing him a favor by hardening his heart to the point where, now it's going to be that difficult to do teshuva, but only that degree of teshuva will do. Do you see what I'm saying?
That? Rambam? Somebody.
Well, it's very interesting. You're very unique. You have 3 things going on.
Exactly.
I can't referee this well enough. Just let it happen. Just go, let it fly. Esther says that maybe Paro can soften his heart by seeing Moshe in his
I would think that would be awesome to see.
Transformed state. What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah's saying, no, he's already gone. He's already far gone. No chance. But Avraham is saying that he'd have to work harder, whatever.
Superhuman.
It does have a fragrance of the machloket of Rambam and Ramban, the two ways of understanding what Hashem has done to Paro's heart. But it says, Vayichbad, he made his heart into a liver. Kaved, he made it heavy like a liver. Whatever, there's a play on words with kaved and heavy. He made it heavy. He hardened it, hardened arteries, hardened heart, hardened liver. So the Rambam says he took away his free will. He didn't deserve any more.
Mm-hmm.
The Ramban says he gave him the ability to have free will in the face of an overwhelming force called miracle, God, and still to maintain his free will, to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different way to see it. It's brilliant.
You're saying that because he had witnessed such greatness with the plagues that he almost didn't have free will of the other.
How could I,
How could you not?
And we see that he gave in 1,000,000 times, then relented.
Right.
But which means that he never really gave in. I don't know. If we think of it as something that happened back then, we're missing. My dear Rabbi, Dr. Avraham Twersky, our dear Rabbi Avraham Twersky says, an addict knows exactly what Paro is about. I'll stop. It's addictive behavior at its best. And I can't stop. I'll stop, and I can't stop. So how do we cut to the chase? I have all these nice, juicy things here for you. There's part 1 and part 2. What? The new pages. Experiencing the Oregon News on Leil Pesach. It's a buildup, and it's something really to savor. If I go through it too fast, I myself won't get the connections that I had in mind. So I'm telling you that at the bottom of page 3, beneath the hand-drawn thing that I use for almost all of my classes on holidays. It's really a picture out of the Little Prince, but I can't say that. Anyway, what it is it's a very nice little thing that I'll explain, hopefully. But at the bottom of page 3, it says, that's part 1. Now part 2, how did we experience this light on the first Leil Pesach? So this light, what we just described with Moshe, really just barely in passing mentioned that Moshe had an experience. It wasn't his first prophetic experience, but it was the first time he was able to do it in the palace. As a result of that, in my humble opinion, Am Yisrael was now going to be able to have their level of that experience on Leil Pesach. So starting on page 4, we go to Mount Sinai, strangely enough. We go beyond Parshat Bo and beyond Parshat Bishalach to Parshat Yitro, in Exodus chapter 19. At the top of page 4, Atem re'itim et asher asiti leMitzrayim, va'esa etchem al kanfei nesharim, va'avi etchem elai. You yourself saw that what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you as on the wings of eagles, and how I brought you to me. So, okay, why did we come here? Because what Yonatan ben Uziel says on this verse, or Yonatan ben Uziel is not like Onkelos. Onkelos basically just translates the verse from Hebrew to Aramaic. Onkelos was an amazing teacher. He was a Ger Tzedek, etc. So Yonatan ben Uziel had a different job. He added information. And for this verse, he added very interesting information of something that happened on Leil Pesach. He's talking here about, in chapter 19 in Yitro, he's talking about when we're already at the foot of Sinai. And Hashem says to us, you saw what I did to the Egyptians and how I carried you as on the wings of eagles. You remember what I did that when? Remember when I did that to you? You remember? You know when that was? Yonatan ben Uziel tells us that he's referring back to Leil Pesach. It doesn't say in the verse. The verse just says, how I carried you as on the wings of eagles, and I brought you to me. And the truth is, without Yonatan, we wouldn't have any idea of what are you talking about, Ben? Leil Pesach. I brought you to me here at Mount Sinai right now, on the wings of eagles. It's metaphorical, whatever, but I brought you to me. No, Yonatan is bothered. So he says, Atem Hamitun. I love Aramaic. And Yonatan ben Uziel's Aramaic is very, very poetic. Atem Atun Hamitun. You saw. Ma di avadit. That which I did. Limitzra'eh. To the Egyptians. It's almost one-to-one Aramaic Hebrew. Ut'anit yatchon. And I carried you. Al ananin. On clouds. He ki'al gadfe nishrin. Just like on the wings of eagles. So he adds clouds here. Min pilusim. I carried you as on the wings of eagles from pilusim. Now, Pirush Yonatan, you can see this in the English. Yonatan tells us it's called Ramses. That the Aramaic pilusim is the Torah Ramses. And he brings a proof. And then Yonatan continues after the brackets and says, Ve'ovelit yatchon, and I brought you le'atar beit mugdisha. What does that mean? I brought you to the place of the Beit Mikdash. There's no Beit Mikdash yet. Hello. Le'me'evad taman pischa, to sacrifice the Passover offering there. Why would you do that? Why would you bring us out of Egypt to come to Beit HaMikdash that doesn't exist yet, to sacrifice the Passover offering on Leil Pesach? Ubahu Lelia, and on that very night, Atevit Yatchon, I brought you, I returned you, Lepilusim, to Ramses. Umitaman, and from there, Grivit Yatchon, I brought you close, the Ulpan Oraiti, to the Ulpan of my Torah, which is Har Sinai. So wait, I brought you on clouds.
What's going on here?
What's going on? To Sinai, on Leil Pesach. I brought you back to Ramses, which is still in Egypt, on that very night. And then from there, I brought you. So the difference is going to be, how did he bring us? In what sense did you bring us on Leil Pesach? And what do you mean Beit Mikdash? And then the end of the verse, that I brought you from there, the second time I brought you from there to my Beit Olpan.
I think I just got something I never got before.
So that's going to be a physical trip. The first one is referring to a spiritual trip. So that's,
Right.
the first one is not literal. It's a midrashic way of saying something very deep. Yes, Esther.
No, I just flashed on something, but the first time, I don't know, this is what came, that Hashem knew obviously that they were going to go through all kinds of very big hardships and go and have a million complaints and tests and just, they had so much ahead of them that was going to be very, very hard. So he gave them an incredible positive experience of GEULAH, what we're going to, Har Sinai, the Beit HaMikdash, Israel. This is the object of this journey. Now you'll have to go through it, but at least experience.
Anybody ever hear of a peak experience where you have this amazing experience, then Hashem drops you down and now he says, now you do it? You ever an idea like that? He lifts you up and then he plops you down and he says, now you do it. What do you mean? How do we do this? We need to be picked up again. No. I picked you up to show you what's possible. And now you do it, right? That kind of thing.
Wow.
You think?
But he also, with the sacrifice of the Pesach offering, you couldn't have chametz. And so going back to the idols, where Moshe had to leave to pray. So here, if he brought the people, spiritually or whatever, to do the Pesach offering in the temple, then there wouldn't be any chametz. It would be a pure type of sacrifice. So you wouldn't have idols or any foreign
for sure
ideas or something.
Okay, I think you're going to be happy with where we're going with this. Okay, so remember we're on page 4. So
I don't know about you, I was just a Beit Mikdash.
yeah, that has to be answered. What's this Beit Mikdash stuff? Yonatan ben Uziel has added something of inestimable value to our understanding of the Exodus. According to the commentary called Pirush Yonatan, the words "I brought you to me" forced Yonatan ben Uziel to conclude that Hashem brought Israel to Mount Moriah, Har Habayit, the Temple Mount. It was there, he says, that Israel sacrificed the Passover offering, as generations of Jews would eventually do in the future, when the first and second Beit HaMikdash would be built, and where the third Beit HaMikdash will soon stand. The problem is that the Torah tells us in no uncertain terms that we were not allowed to leave our homes the entire night of Pesach. So how could we go or even be taken anywhere, let alone the site of the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, which hadn't even been built yet? So the verses in chapter 12 of Exodus, yes? Chapter 12 of Exodus, now we start, verses 21 to 23. Moshe summoned the elders of Israel and said to them, "Draw away from all impurity. Take sheep with your families so that you will be able to slaughter the Pesach offering. Take a sprig of hyssop and dip it in the blood that will be placed in a basin. Touch the beam over the door and the 2 doorposts and some of the blood in the basin. Not a single one of you may go out of the door of your home until morning. V'atem lo tetzeu ish mipetach beto ad boker. You may not leave your homes until morning. At midnight, Hashem will pass through and strike Mitzrayim." We stayed in our homes all night. Only in the morning did we actually depart. And that's in the same chapter, verse 41. All of Hashem's legions departed Mitzrayim be'etzem hayom hazeh, on that very day. And you'll see in a moment that on that very day, be'etzem hayom hazeh, Rashi defines as in broad daylight. Leil shmurim hu l'Adonai. It was a night of vigil for Hashem to bring them forth from the land of Mitzrayim. Hu halayla hazeh. This night remains Hashem's vigil night for the children of Israel for all generations. Actually, the whole piece on page 1 starts with this verse, and we were going to develop it. It's another development. Here it just fits in here, but it's like the pages 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if we'll be able to do them, but it's something that I really hope that you'll all savor, as I said. But wait a second. It says here, it repeats for the second time, be'etzem hayom hazeh, on that very day, in broad daylight, Hashem brought forth the children of Israel from Mitzrayim according to their hosts. So clearly we did not leave Mitzrayim physically until well into the next day. But if so, how are we to understand Yonatan ben Uziel's statement, "I carried you on clouds, as on the wings of eagles, from Ramses, and I brought you to the site of the Beit HaMikdash, etc. That night I brought you back to Ramses." My contention is that we stayed on the site of the Beit HaMikdash all night and only returned to Ramses at the conclusion of the night, i.e. just before dawn. Of course, you will ask, how does this fit with the fact that we were supposed to remain in our homes the entire night? So the answer has to be here in the last paragraph. We never left our homes that entire night. We never left Egypt physically that entire night. Yonatan ben Uziel is not telling us about a physical trip. Yonatan is telling what happened spiritually, how we experienced the light of Yetziat Mitzrayim spiritually. In the language of Midrash, Yonatan can tell us that we were flown to the site of the future Beit HaMikdash and yet still maintain that we never left Mitzrayim physically. We were sitting in our homes, and all of a sudden, the outer shell of reality dissolved. And we found ourselves in the heavenly Beit HaMikdash, in Eden, in redemption. This inner level of reality is what we experienced on that first Pesach. In other words, Eden and redemption and Beit HaMikdash are not physical places, they are states of consciousness in this sense. The whole reason of learning these things this way and to get to this point of understanding, oh, that's what he meant, right? Because there's no other way. You can't go against the Torah. You must be saying something that's completely aligned with the Torah, but giving us extra information in a midrashic form. And when you take off the midrashic clothing, you are struck. Oh my goodness, Egypt fell away just like the palace fell away for Moshe. And there was no Paro, and there was nothing but Hashem. And that's what allowed us, because Moshe got it, that allowed us to get it. That's the magic of Leil Pesach and all the preparations that we're all going to have to do. And why it's all worth it. Because what we're going for is something that changes our lives and that we want to give to our children and ourselves and our families. Nobody can really give you that experience. You can only lead the horse to the water. You can only say, look at this Torah. Look how the Torah speaks to us on a deeper level. This inner level of reality is what we experienced on that first Pesach, and it is that same inner level that we can experience today. It just involves seeing reality from the inside out, from God's point of view, instead of from the outside in, which is Paro's point of view. As we've indicated, it was the light that shone, which we indicated in pages 1 to 3. It was the light that shone before creation, and that will shine again in all its glory in the Messianic age, that made and makes this possible. So we've done a few meditations. Always the same idea. The idea, I don't know how we did it last time. Was it with the burning bush? No. All I can remember is the burning bush. The burning bush is like my thing today.
Maybe it was the burning bush. I don't know.
Something struck you.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, so we have to do it now. Whether you're in Paro's palace, which means that Paro is taking over your personality, or he does sometimes, or once in a while, or whatever, right? And you get angry, or you get this, or you get taken, and then you eat a big meal and you realize, oh my God, I just ate much more than I wanted. What happened to me? I fell unconscious, right? Unconsciousness is Paro. Consciousness is Moshe. Right. So what we want to do is regain consciousness. We want to connect with the higher part of our own being. And so let's close our eyes. Let's sit up straight. Let's have our feet on the ground and on the floor, and our hands placed comfortably wherever we want to place them. And be aware of your own temple here, your own mikdash, your own holy body that Hashem has given to you. And whatever tensions you're feeling, try and breathe into those places which need to be relaxed. This room is a special energetic room where that which would take hours otherwise takes only seconds. It's a special room. it's a sponge for holiness, this room. And it exudes holiness, and it is permeated with the light, so that even when we close our eyes, we can see light. You can feel the miracle of our existence and how Hashem has given us life. And all of the negativity of whatever has gone wrong and whatever we're dealing with and all the difficulties, we can take that off for a few moments. And you put it back on later, you put them back on later, or you have to enter into those realities later on. You'll perhaps have the advantage of having gone into your own core, touched your own essence, and bring more of that essence into your relationships, into the situations. The wisdom that we need, the understanding, the empathy, the compassion, the patience that we all need, the qualities that we all need to nurture. Where are they going to come from if not from deep inside of us? And just as Moshe was given the amazing experience that he was given at the burning bush, and then which continued every time he got prophecy, and then he gave it to us, and he wanted us to carry it, to go to Sinai with it, and to have to the Red Sea, and to have it again at Sinai, and to be able to access it whenever we need it, to know that on the deepest level, our lives are guided. We are we're beloved. If we've made mistakes, our divine parent still loves us and knows how much more we need his love and his healing. His GEULAH, to be redeemed from our Egypts, to believe in ourselves. You don't need wine, you don't need anything else for this. Just the wine of breathing, that champagne, the champagne of existence, the appreciation of is. Being washed on the inside and being washed on the outside. Last week when we did this, I told you over the Torah of the Memtet and the Nun, the 49 levels of effort and exertion that we need to attain the level of 50, the work that we need to do in order to come home, and that Hashem casts purifying waters upon us, Mayim Tahorim. But when we actually get there, we allow that water to penetrate. We immerse in that water. We enter into the water completely. We're home. So just stay here for a second. That when home in Egypt expands and the walls disappear, and we're in the Mikdash, is the experience that we try that we are trying to say that exactly is what happened. We didn't have to go anywhere. It wasn't a physical trip. And that experience was so powerful that on the basis of that is how we left Egypt the next morning as free human beings in the Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, in full daylight, physically, actually. But we couldn't have done it if we hadn't done it spiritually first. And that's the principle, is that some inner work has to be done in order for our outer reality to come into alignment. And until then, our outer reality will give us all kinds of nasty messages that we're not doing okay. We pray Hashem will guide us on this difficult path of GEULAH. We need your help so much. We know that you're building us on the way. We open ourselves up to your guidance. Our people, the world, so many people confused and lost, hurt. So, L'man achai v're'ai. L'man achai v're'ai. L'man achai v're'ai. Na 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 na. Shalom bach l'man achai v're'ai. L'man achai v're'ai. Shalom Hashem Elokeinu L'man Hashem Elokeinu na 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 oh somebody was having a really hard time coughing. I think it was. Yeah. Hope she's okay. Are you all right? You want some water? Okay. So I'm going to go back to page 1. So this was what you call it, a squashed down version of what I have in my book, Pesach Light. So it's available. I can send it to anybody. It has a whole Haggadah in it. It has Torahs from Rabbi Nachman, from the Rav, from the Leshem Shvav Achlama, from the Gaon of Vilna, from Rav Avraham, a very special Talmud of the Maggid of Mezrich, really beautiful Torahs, and a whole theory of what Pesach is about, and whatever. Okay. So,
Can I ask a question?
please.
When the
state of consciousness that they were at, according to Tanuzir, when they were taken to Beit Mikdash and were having the Pesach offering. Now, was that a state of consciousness where there was no physicality or
Yeah.
no physicality?
Prophetic, out of this world, no physicality.
But they were eating.
No, it was you can't go against the Torah. The Torah says we didn't leave our houses.
No, I understand. The Korban was
That
not a
way they-
physical thing either.
They eat it. They ate it in their homes. That was what the Torah says we did. Yonatan cannot contradict the Torah.
But so I don't get it.
So how could he say what he's saying?
No, I can understand that, but I'm trying to understand the experience that we had then, according to what Yonatan Ben Uzziah says.
I think what she's asking, was it an out-of-the-body experience, or was it something more than that?
Connecting with food.
I think physically we were in our homes, physically eating the sacrifice, but spiritually we weren't in Mitzrayim anymore. And then only then the next day then we could actually be out of Mitzrayim really in like physicality.
Spiritually, we were not in Egypt. It disappeared. Just like when Moshe was in the palace and he went into prophecy.
It's a total parallel.
It's a total parallel. How exactly experience it? All we know is that we need to do it now in our time, and that's the whole reason that these 5 pages is that we could get the idea that such a thing is part of Judaism.
Well, I once had an experience at the Shavuot, when my first Shavuot, and after Tikkun Shavuot, the Shacharit, the whole thing, we went. I think it was a Shabbat. We slept, and then we were in a huge rooftop garden, so to speak, of the place where we were doing the Chag together, and everything I saw, everything physical, I know it was not. I can't explain. There was something where everything looked different, although it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
There was and I didn't know how to call it or anything. All I can remember is that what I felt, the feeling of it was.
Mm-hmm.
I can even see it. So I'm trying. That's about this more spiritual experience. I'm trying to see how that is guiding somehow through what we may be able to experience, according to look forward to or think about or
ask
aim
for
something.
Wow.
How to connect.
That's your touch point for what that experience is, that you felt something was that Leil Shavuot. So that experience was given to you. From where did that experience come from? It came, Hashem was giving it to you, but it came, and I'm not trying to force my thing on you, but we can ask the question almost, it came from something deeper. It fit exactly into the situation that you were in, but it came from a deeper place. I brought pages tonight. One is a quote from Rav Kook, and then the source for Rav Kook and the Brisker Rav, the Beit HaLevi. There are 2 types of reasons for the commandments of the Torah. One type is national, historic. The mitzvot are endowed with by Israel's existence. The various commandments signify different events in Jewish history. Why do we keep Passover?
It's a commemoration.
Because
of what
Passover
it is.
happened. And we don't just commemorate because it's a spiral. We come alignment every year. But even though, where does it all come from? It comes from Pesach. So Rav Kook says, yes, there is that. In this regard, Israel contextualizes the commandments. These are called the revealed reasons for the Torah, the reasons for the commandments. But this is the proximate, not the ultimate meaning of the mitzvot. The ultimate reasons for the commandments, called Ta'ameh mitzvot, are prehistoric. not prehistoric in terms of animals. Prehistoric means before history, before creation. Before creation. Before creation. Bria. Before he created us, he wanted to give us. And then he found that the right moment was, I'll give it to them with all these miracles. Where does stuff come from? It comes from there. The entire world order. These ultimate reasons for the mitzvot will only be revealed in the future when this level of reality phases away and we come back into that. And he brings a source. That may be too much, but I did Xerox it. HaTorah kadma la'olam. We have a very definite thing. The Torah preceded the world. The Torah preceded the world. So quasi-literally, we can say the text of the Torah preceded the world. The stories of the Torah preceded the world. The story of Avraham and Sarah, of Moshe and Yosef and David preceded, and you and me and all of us preceded the world. We need to say Hashem is infinite omniscience. Wow, that's like we're with all this, right? And then it comes, and the Torah comes into time as a time-release capsule. It comes into time with Moshe Rabbeinu, and then it comes into time and then it gets revealed in pieces, in segments. And at the very end, the Torah that was the Torah that has been revealed since Moshe will be seen to be an infinitesimal amount of the Torah that preceded creation. So, where did your experience come from? It came from deeper and deeper levels of what Hashem wants to give you, and it came through that little peephole. And for me, it came through another peephole in my life. What we need to do when we remember is not just remember the experience, but to remember the one who gave us the experience and ask him to give it to us again in different contexts, because we don't want to limit it. It's like a guy who's saved on the beach. He's washed up on the shore. He says, oh my goodness, I'm going to serve the God of the beach. And he makes a little chapel there. And everybody comes and says, what's going on? He says, I was saved. People. A Jew comes by and says, what are you doing? This is the God of the beach. In Judaism, we say a bracha where there was a miracle to the one who did the miracle. It just, and he did it here. He's not limited to this. That's fixating God in a place and a time and an idol or whatever. So we free God, but the experiences are very important. We want to use the experience to go back to he who gave us the experience and ask him to give us more. So that we have the more full. We have it here, we have it there, we have it at the beach, we have it in the mountain, we're up in the sky, we're down on our bed, we're sick for 3 days, and we're having the same experience, or we're davening and we're bowing, and we come up from the bow and we say, oh my goodness, this is what I experienced when I was there. Thank you so much. We have to be sensitive to the nuances. Okay.
Rabbi, when you said that everything was there before creation, it sort of had to be in order for us to, I mean, everything that's written in Torah, everything that came afterwards today, it was already there.
Well, okay, so that's a difficult issue. Did everything, in order for it to be here, did everything have to happen first in God's mind? I can't answer that, but I can say one thing. Avraham Avinu had to be born and to struggle to become Avraham Avinu. No matter what Shemayim, it wasn't Shemayim, it was undeveloped potential. That's why he gave us this world. So we are not a one world people. Actually, to me, it's all one world, but we are a two-world people. We believe in this world and the importance of it and the awesomeness of it. And you cannot, though, ever diminish the importance of where it all comes from. We don't understand it and all that, but there's something important. That's why we 5, 6, 7, who knows how many weeks ago, we went into the source for Moshe, Avraham. Why Hashem calls a person by their name twice. the higher level, and the lower level that's inside of us. So then he opens us up, the little level that's inside of us, he opens us up, connects us to the higher level. We can, once you've had that once, or even a peek at it, then you ask, please, let me do it more. Let me bring more of that higher level of myself into my life. I need it. I need, in that sense, the spiritual teachings of Judaism are, in a sense, very, very magical. We believe in Hashem's magic. That we still have to do the work down here, but the siyata d'shmaya, the divine's assistance, when we open up to it, is essential for our being. It's our water, it's our mother's milk. I can't tell if I'm doing something or God's doing it. Fine. In the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, excuse me, I bring in here I bring in here that the every day before the men and the women were making the vessels of the Mishkan, Moshe and Bezalel would give a class, and then they would wait together silently until the Ruach HaKodesh would come into them and call all the way into their body and into their hands, and they'd start to work. And they realized that they were not doing this, but that Hashem was doing it through them. They were doing very, very, very interesting work. Rashi says some of the most difficult things. So it's the Mishkan represents the absolute most beautiful harmony of man and God, of the meeting of heaven and earth. And that when man is doing it, and yet Hashem is doing it, and we know that Hashem, so glad you're doing it. And we say, Hashem, you're doing it. And he says, and we say, no, you're doing it. Okay.
May I say?
Yes.
You brought me to mind about 10 minutes ago, we were just meditating. So we were in his house, my mouth was speaking, we were singing. But if you tell me if my higher self was here, I can tell you that maybe it was not here. I mean, my physical body was here. So I was physically, I don't want to make a connection with the set that I was speaking. So physically we were here, but the experience out of the house is, so, and then I came back. So maybe that's what Nathan Van Uziel is saying, we meditated in this place, and today, that is Tuesday, and we are tapping in with all the meditation that was done in this moment, in this place. Like we said at Pesach, you tap in with all the years and years Pesach said, if you really connected. So you go out, but you're here, and you come back, and have inside all your experience all the way back to the first Seder.
Beautiful.
But it's all connected. It's all one.
It's connected.
All the way back to the first Seder. That's actually like right now. What I'm saying is, so you started by saying Pharaoh is the unconsciousness, and Moshe is the consciousness, and Mitzrayim is the unconsciousness, and GEULAH is the consciousness. And when you think about that, the Mitzrayim is like this world that we're in, and that unconsciousness the consciousness that we tap into is of the next world, where it's all being created and happening all in the same time. There's only the oneness. There isn't like a million Pesach ago. It's only like now. You get what I'm saying? It's not like we're not traveling space. It's all happening in that same moment of oneness. We're all in the same place. So I think like our mission of bringing GEULAH is to be in that conscious state all day long. Not just when we meditate. It's beautiful that we can do when we meditate, but can we do it and walk, and that's when we'll be like Bezalel and Moshe, where it's like, Hashem, no, you're doing it. He's like, no, you're doing it. It's like, no. Like, be in that meditative thing as I'm putting on my shoes, as I'm eating my bread, and doing these mitzvahs to try to remind us to do it. But like, I wish I could be in that place when I say my bracha on food, you know? I wish I could be in that place when I'm actually putting my shoes. But like, that's the goal for me at least.
Yeah. Amen.
We all.
Yeah.
I was going to say something that sort of feeds into that, or comes out of that in a very real way, on the heels of something you said, that if we want to have such revelatory peak, whatever you want to call them, experiences again, that we may have had in the past. We've also got to be prepared to live up to that revelation. If you're not, you won't get it. You have to be a kli to get it again. You have to say, right, I want to, just like what you were saying, I want to live and work at that level, at least in some measure. So I'm not just going for the trip or I'm going for the development of it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going for the development of it, and it's got to be something prepared to take on, if you like, to take on the consequences
And the responsibilities.
and the responsibility of it.
This is not just a trip. Right?
Yeah.
We want to live at that level.
That's a big thing.
We can
Yeah,
ask
but it's
Hashem
getting
to
your
help
That's
us.
ego
a
completely
big
out of the way,
thing.
which
That's
is the
total
biggest
transformation.
hard part of it. To be ego, but when your ego's there, that's when you get the mechitzot.
Okay, so Rebecca is saying, well, if you have an ego, that's going to make it really hard. So Judaism seems to be saying, let's try this. That no, I'm not asking you to get rid of your ego. I'm asking you to dedicate your ego to higher purpose. And you don't need to get rid of it. You have to keep it in line. That's why we give oxen and sheep and rams as sacrifices, according to Hirsch, is that they represent 3 different types of personalities. And what we're doing, even though nowadays people will say that's absolutely the worst thing you could do is offer an animal, but within the Torah, this is what we do: is we offer those personality types, whatever,
You should say.
and uplift and elevate. So it's not the killing of the ego; it's the elevation into a higher position. But again,
It's about limit. It's about controlling it. It's not about killing it.
refining it.
Finding it,
Yeah.
holding it in its place.
I always like what David Zelek called the book. The ego is the ambassador of the soul. Which it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
We said king and servant is when the real king is in charge, he treats the servant like a king. When the servant is in charge, he wants to kill the king because the real king is a threat to his kingdom. Remember we said that a few times? So the ego is given its place in the personality and its proper place to do things. Okay, so
The ego give us to choose.
we're not defining terms very, very, very,
We have to have
literally.
Nobody said we don't.
In general, yeah. There was one thing. So what Yosef said reminded me of what I want to share with you next week, which is a Torah from Rav Avraham Yeshua Heschel of Apt, which I basically share every year. But I hope that the way that I give things over empowers that I'm giving you the information and the actual text and asking you to make it part of your life, and in doing so, teach it. If you want, share it. These are very precious. So Rav Avraham Yeshua Heschel talks about what happened on the Pesach, especially in the story of the five masters that met in Bnei Brak. It's pure poetry. So again, it's the same thing that what's your name again? Sarah said, and that we've been speaking about is to enter into this deeper state, to become more accustomed to doing that. So then when we come out of our prayer, we come back into our life with a greater sense of Hashem's presence in our life. Passover, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, they're all part of the GEULAH process of bringing us up to the higher levels that Hashem wants to give us. these pages here that lead up to the bottom of page 3 with the diagram that where did it get its energy from? And I bring it to our Nachman that it got its energy from the light that will reveal. Excuse me. The Ramchal says that we got our present Pesach is the first Pesach. And it's not just a commemoration, it's the same energy, the same light and power that can flow into our Pesach that flowed then. The Rabbi Nachman adds and says and asks, where did it come from? Where did Hashem borrow the light of the first Pesach? And says he borrowed it from the future. And he has a beautiful Torah there. That's on page 2.
Let's do.
And then we can do it. And then the others, this like 10 or 12 sources. Where does the light come that he's going to reveal in the future? The answer is that's coming from the light that he originally hid when he first made the universe. And so these larger circles, larger context within which we live, as we live within this context of Hashem wanting to reveal his great light to us and promising will. In the meantime, he gave us Pesach. But the truth is, once we get the idea, then we know it's really possible at any moment. You can have a Pesach moment, a Yom Kippur moment. These things were given to us to help us, to make it easier for us. There are openings in Shemayim, but again, then once you've tasted it, then you can somehow become self-generating. And if you've had a good experience, you're not now dependent on that place or that time. You're dependent on your desire to connect to the one who gave that experience. So, Rabbi Nachman's on.
Wait, what paragraph? Third?
So it says here, I mean, the stuff on page 1 is very, very special. I can't, you'll read it. So, the top of page 2 is the Sforno. Okay, so we're not going to do that. Right under that is we saw the Ramchal above, that the light of Pesach shines each year. Rabbi Nachman tells us where this light came from. So he asks, what's the essence of the redemption from Egypt? From what place and time were all the miracles and supernatural wonders that occurred there taken or borrowed when Hashem completely changed and overturned the natural order of the world, nullifying the laws and constant nature, and thereby revealing his unmitigated providence over the world? Where did he take that from? This is a strange question. God doesn't have to take anything from anywhere.
Just do it.
But he just does it. But he wanted to teach us something very special, so he's using this model. He said it was all borrowed from the level called the Ketz HaAcharon, the final end time. That is, from the light that will be revealed at that time. He will then show us that there was never any such thing as nature. The so-called laws of nature will be nullified, and all will see that they were merely a camouflage for God's direct and uninterrupted providence. This ultimate end, this Ketz HaAcharon, is none other than the great Shabbat that will culminate the 6,000 years of this world. It is called Ate, the ultimate world of the future. The word Ate, the complete Sabbath that will follow the week. It is from that ultimate future that Hashem drew the light of providence from so far, from beyond the boundaries of the world as we know it, from Ketz HaAcharon, the ultimate end, in order to overturn the natural order and redeem us from each Mitzrayim. So that's such a beautiful idea. The idea came to me when he gave prophets. One lifted them up and catapulted them into the future. That was the way I understood. He then showed them where history was going, and he brought them back to the present, and he said, tell everybody a little bit of what you saw. Then I got it. No, it didn't just catapult us into the future. He took them above space-time. Again, playing with words, what do I know this means? But he took them above, so they saw all of time from beginning to end. So the same thing here. There's the idea that there's an end when everything will be revealed in a much more, and then come back down with that into the now. That's what was very helpful for me. That's something that I've told Celia times, that I've had a conversation with Hashem because the end, when it was all over and I had my conversation with God and I asked him all my questions and I felt what it's like to be in that place. I imagined it. I totally got into what that would be, and it was not hard. And I imagined that I'd ask him and that he would look at me and he would jolt me with thought. And I'd say, whoa, okay, wow. But what about the Holocaust? And then he'd jolt me again. He didn't have to speak in words. And I said, oh, it's just overwhelming. And that my final statement to him was, you're unbelievable. You did all that for us. That's amazing. We'll never be able to thank you enough. We'll never be able to thank you enough to bring that back to right now. I'll never be able to thank. I do that with all the bad in the world because I've seen where it all goes. I've been taken. It's all in imagination. That it's all based on the Torah, that you can do that. You can actually believe that everything has a meaning, that nothing is by chance. They don't teach us in college.
Mm-hmm. Indeed not.
Okay.
Unless you take extracurricular.
Extracurriculars, okay. So really bless us all. Thank you so much. We really broke through the barriers.
Is this from the book? All of this from the Pesach book, or is it new things?
Page 1 is not in the book because page 1 is I translated tonight.
Okay.
Yonatan ben Uziel and Targum Yerushalmi on that verse Leil Shmurim. It's amazing targums. The Targum Yerushalmi says it just adds.
I know.
It's amazing.
Like fine wine.
Enjoy it. Anybody who's not here in the room and who wants to write to me, and I'll send it to you. Okay.
What does these diagram comes from?
The diagram? Again, Ramchal tells me that Pesach today comes from Pesach, the first Pesach. Rabbi tells me, where does that Pesach come from? From here. The Zohar came from there. So I saw systems, and that when I come back into my little moment right now, I can bring all that here. And then these are the masters of putting what's called the big into the small. Every bracha, every prayer, every name of Hashem that we say has all of eternity in it. Mu'at shechzik et meruba. It's called the little that holds the great. They were master of putting all of eternity in each holiday, in each prayer, in each blessing, in each word, in each letter. And we don't know how to open up those letters and those words, blessings, but that's what I'm trying to show. Amruba. Okay.
Avraham, also, when Avraham was asked, "Am I going to when his children?" So it was by Seoto Hachutza. Totally, it's the same thing.
He took him outside.
And he showed him, yes, it's going to happen, and even though you don't think it's going to be able to happen, it is going to happen, and you are going to above.
Chazak Baruch, everybody. The song at the end we're not singing. I don't know the tune. Anybody who knows the tune of Vayi B'Chatzi Alayla, it's one of the last tunes that's sung in the Ashkenazi Haggadah Shel Pesach on Lo Pesach, and based on page 1 here with all these midrashim, so I brought it in, and I was hoping that somebody would know the tune, and maybe next week. Sarah,
One, where are you streaming this?
streaming it on my Facebook and also on the Simchat Shlomo YouTube.
Okay. And then,
And it's also an audio MP3.
cool. And then can I ask you to email me the Pesach book?
You sure can. I can. You're gonna send me an email.
Sure. I can do that.
It's Avraham,
I missed the last one.
Avraham, Avraham dot Sutton, SUTTON at iCloud.com.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it. I'll get that now.
Okay.
Last thing. Can you repeat what you said about the king and the servant?
Yeah.
About when the king and the
So-
servant.
Yeah. So that's a Torah that we shared again 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That based on the story of the exchange, Rabbi Nachman's story of the exchange children. I can send you about that.
Okay, I'll ask for that too.
Major stuff.
Okay, perfect. So I'll email you right now for Pesach 1 and that. Thank you so much.
Okay.